addition to the agenda under 7. We'll make it D and just show it as historical research. Okay, can someone move approval of the minutes from June the 4th?
Chair, does that really?
Do we going to approve the agenda now?
I guess we should do that too. Okay, approve the agenda with,
I'll make that motion.
okay, and now the minutes for
All in favor?
all of,
Okay.
okay.
And the minutes all in favor?
Is there any changes to the minutes?
That's okay.
From June the 4th?
I'll move that we approve the minutes.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, one delegation at 4 o'clock. Richard Anderson won't be here. He is sick and will probably appear at a later date. Okay, did you all get a chance to read over the backgrounder?
Yeah.
Okay. So new business, A is the land sale policy. And I guess the changes, the ones that are marked in yellow.
I would move that we recommend to accept the amendment to that policy.
Any discussion?
I have a comment. I think we've got to make it, I don't know what word you, I'm going to use the word reasonable, for people who want to do some development in our town, whether it be residential or commercial or industrial. We don't make it too hard for them to get on with their life and they can move on a timely basis. I think it's important that we be proactive in promoting our town.
I would wholeheartedly echo similar sentiment, Councillor. Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I would wholeheartedly echo Councillor Dell's sentiment.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
I would make a comment, and I think that definitely clarifies the policy and should help us not to have so many more difficulty applying it.
Okay,
And so I'm grateful for the changes.
We almost seem to, sometimes to be a hindrance. We can get rid of that.
okay, all in favor of the motion to present it to council on the next meeting, next Tuesday? All in favor?
Opposed?
Opposed.
Unopposed?
I don't know if there was any.
Okay,
Councillor Smith showing up right there. Second, I never even saw you come
That's
in.
good.
I just like stealth mode. Just like a cat.
okay, we have a request from Jeff Heggie for a waiver of the charges for the use of the filling station of water for the Mona Quest.
Did they have a reason why they want it waived? Is there some reason?
Well, I think he says in his letter that seeing they're residents of the town,
Oh, yeah.
that they were paying for something that they get for free if they were at home.
Well, if I filled from the filling station, even though I'm a resident, I would pay for the water that I use. So I don't see that that's,
The church provides funds for these type of activities that they can draw on quite easily.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, one of the concerns that I have, and I pretty much agree with Councillor Dell, unless there's some precedent that tells us otherwise, and some precedents don't need to be set in stone, but I think we better be careful that we don't tend to show preference. And so unless administration has some background that would enlighten us to things such as this group's use of the water, I would move that we recommend to council that this request be denied. That would be my recommendation, unless there's some information from administration.
This request has come before council in the past, previous councils, and I believe their fee was waived at that time.
Okay.
That doesn't mean it has to be done every time.
Councillor Curran?
There is something else that I thought of. I thought of if the West Take wanted to have a donation, then it should have been presented to council in a timely fashion and manner, and we could have looked at it at that time. And that's why we have a policy that could be useful to follow.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, sorry, just in addition to my comments, is the donation policy was instated after the previous time it was waived. And so, yes, you're correct, Councillor, that this would fall under the current donation policy.
Thank you.
Right.
I think given the fact that there is some history of waiving, and I don't personally recall the request coming during a prior term. I don't recall, but I do believe that this is a precedent that probably needs to be taken into consideration. And policy notwithstanding, given the precedent, then I would move, Mr. Chairman, that the charge for the water be waived.
Any discussion? Councillor Creed?
I'm just, I wonder if we could just clarify what our donation policy is on this. I think it would have to be something that would, that everybody in the town, would be able to participate in, or have some benefit to the town. I'm a little uncomfortable, since we have the donation policy, and I understand, precedent, it becomes a little tricky, but I'm just thinking where we have the donation policy in place now, and if it doesn't fit the donation policy, that maybe we better stick with the donation policy that we have, rather than, create,
Precedent.
My reply would be that the appropriate way to handle a situation like this is we would advise them of the policy, and under a normal circumstance, what are the chances that this or any other group would be aware of a donation policy, which I support. I'm not questioning the validity of and the purpose of the donation policy. But this group, having a precedent there, and any group, should at least be made aware to some extent that there is a donation policy. And moving forward, then they'll know.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, I just have to go with what Councillor Dell was saying there. I mean, the church does actually set aside funding for these type of activities and things like that. As far as I'm aware, the church pays zero property tax on any of their properties, and there is the funding for it. If it was a group that, is maybe struggling for funding and things, and, maybe that's something that we might look at. But, from what I understand and know, that I think we should go and ask them to pay that $83 or.
Councillor Dahl?
My thought is this: we have our facilities, and there's a cost to use those facilities, regardless of whether it be the hall here or the water facility or whatever it might be. We have a cost to bear, and I see nothing wrong with asking people to pay their share of that cost. We don't make a profit on it, so I see that cost should be paid for by those who use it.
That, if I understand, I use private facilities. It was private land they were on.
I'm not sure the relevance of where they went with the water. I'm not sure that's relevant.
Councillor Creed?
Just one other thing that, we want to support, organizations. Recently they had a request, for some land for a camp, and it was basically promoted in that request, it wasn't ours, it was to the county, but they basically promoted that the church, is an entity that pays its own way. And I kind of feel that if we allow this, then we're kind of hurting their position where they said that, we pay our own way, and then we're saying, no, we're requesting waivers. And so I'm thinking it might jeopardize their position a little bit when they're applying again for land to say, well, we pay our own way, and saying, well, but you were requesting waivers of fees for this and that. So that's another thing that I'm wondering about, or I question whether this might be a good thing or not.
To clarify, Mr. Chairman, and this is off topic, but it's been raised. The land that would be bought by the church would be taxable, and so that, in that sense, that they would pay their own way, and would also be involved in any infrastructure needs as well, dust abatement, things like that, wear and tear on the road, but they would pay a huge tax bill. So in that sense, they would pay their own way.
Mr. Curran?
I really move that we recommend that we do not waive that $83.10.
There's a motion on the table,
Oh,
point
I'm
of order,
so
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, who's in favor of the motion to waive the charges?
As a recommendation.
You approve the recommendation to waive the cost of the water services. All in favor? Against? Okay. Can we maybe ask administration to send them a copy of our donation policy so that they're aware of it in the future?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a point. Councils come and councils go. Policies come and policies go. I'm not sure that I'm comfortable that this is the right way to educate people as to policy changes. And this would be my broad-based philosophy across the board on any policy change, that organizations, individuals or businesses, whatever the incident might be, the situation might be, I really believe that, and as we focus a lot on communication, how are we supposed to communicate to people when there's been a policy implemented or a policy changed? What's the right way to do that? What's the fair way to do that? And I realize we're not talking about a lot of money here. We're really not talking about a lot of money here. But I do think there's a principle involved that as we move forward, how will we as a council communicate every policy change that we make? And that's why I was comfortable in the motion that I made, and I was outvoted quite resoundingly, and I understand that. But on a point of principle, we need to at least look at when we make policy changes, when we implement these policies where there's been some precedent set, then we have a certain obligation to respect the precedent.
That's great.
I agree with Mayor Scow on communicating the policies and bylaws as well. I mean, we've had this discussion before. We passed bylaws, and we talk about how do we communicate these to the public, and I think we've almost been on opposite sides on that before, because we do everything we can. It's in the minutes. We can put it in the paper. We can do all of these things, and I guess the question that I've asked before is, do we do enough? And some have said, yeah, we do enough. And so I'm almost like saying we're almost opposite points of view on this particular issue. But I think it helps us, I think, come together when we see that, yeah, there is a need to communicate, and how do we communicate? And I'm glad we're thinking about that.
Well, I guess in the perfect world, everybody would read the minutes from Cardston's meetings and be aware of the changes that were made, but
It's
Well, that's
not,
what I
It isn't
think.
the way it
I think
is.
due diligence needs to be done. I mean, we can only do so much, and, you know, they need to do something on their part as well, so, but I'm good.
I don't think that people in the town should expect the town to pay for all these little incidentals that come up. So we've got a policy to follow. I think we need to stick to that policy.
Okay, any further comments? Okay, we'll go on to 7C, where the Rotary Club is looking for participants for their upcoming golf tournament on September the 10th, or 7th, I should say, at 12 p.m.
Sorry, what was the
What
date
they
on?
want is a team.
Right.
What was the date on it?
Put in a
September
team.
7th at 12 p.m.
This Friday, isn't it?
They don't want us to sponsor
You
it.
know,
You're asking
it's
me
one
that
or the
too.
other.
To sponsor a hole is $200. Scott?
Mr. Chairman, council has had extensive discussions in the past years about which charitable events or which charitable organizations or functions we will and will not support. There has been strong opinion voiced in past councils that individuals have the right to choose what they do with their own checkbook, what they do with their own funds, what they do with their own donations. The worthy cause notwithstanding, and I'm not suggesting I'll oppose if they want us to sponsor a hole. I'm not suggesting I'll oppose if there's 4 members of our staff that want to play in the tournament. But within the context of every charitable request we get, this is just another one. And I mean, I appreciate all the good work that the Kinsman Club does, or the Lions, or the Legion, or the Rotary Club. But just to remind council that as much as we'd like to take taxpayer dollars and support their fundraiser, we need to be a little careful.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, my thing is with the service clubs, they do a lot of good things around the community, you know, from, you know, putting the Rotary, what is it, camp kitchen down in the Lions Park there, you know, they offer, some of the clubs offer free skating for all the citizens, you know, throughout the year and things like that. So the service clubs, I feel that we need to help with them. I mean, they help in our community as well to make things, you know, look nicer, to, you know, help build parks or help get a funding together to help, you know, build some of the small parks and things like that. So I don't have an issue, you know, offering some kind of help. Like I say, I mean, I'd rather, you know, I mean, and this also, I mean, it's also advertising for the town as well. I mean, this is kind of, you know, what that is, whether it's putting a team in or having our name put up on one of the holes or whatever, the town's name put up on a hole. So myself personally, I don't have an issue with this one here, so.
Councillor Cronin?
I just want to know, I don't have the donation policy here. How does that fit within the framework of our donation policy?
The objective of the policy is to provide council with consistent response for requests and to provide clear procedures. To be eligible, must be based within the town of Cardston, demonstrate the need for the specific request, be an individual or non-profit entity, use or distribute the donation wholly within the town of Cardston through the events or activities associated with the donation, not be the recipient of other town funds, not be a federally or provincially funded initiative, not be raising funds on behalf of another group who would not otherwise qualify, not be a registered party, registered constituency association, agree to acknowledge the town contribution in all publicity, and show outcomes that positively benefit the town and its citizens. Requests are to be received a minimum 30 days before the event. We did receive this request the day of our last council meeting, but due to the amount of information we have on the agenda, we didn't put it as an addition because it was late coming in.
Thank you.
Councillor Court?
I think that donation policy hits Rotary Club on every level. I think $200 investment is going to be returned
To the community.
tenfold to the community. I see no problem with.
Sir, how
Yeah.
much was it now for the team?
It's $400.
$200 a hole, or $400 if you have people.
Yeah.
Now,
I would sponsor a whole.
the Rotary Club does a lot in this town. They put facilities in the hospital and stuff like that from the money that they have raised. So
The money goes back to the
it comes back to
community.
the town.
We have a recommendation?
Well, just clarification, are we actually asking, are we talking about sponsoring 4 people in the golf tournament, or are we talking about sponsoring a hole?
I would
Sponsoring
prefer
a
to
whole.
sponsor.
I would be,
sponsor a
yes,
whole.
I'd make a motion that we sponsor a hole for $200 for the Rotary Club golf tournament, golf scramble.
What did we do last year?
Last year, I'd have to
Sponsored a
look
whole?
back.
Yeah, I think we do.
Did it?
I know in the past, they have sponsored a team, and then we let employees go along with, I think you went as well.
Okay, any discussion on the recommendation?
Did we want to, just $200 for the whole?
The hole, that's the
Yeah.
motion.
The recommendation for the motion.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the town was contacted by Dr. Godfrey. I don't know whether you know him. He's the one that wrote the book on Charles Oricard on his diaries. And matter of fact, I met with him this summer when he and his brother were in town. They visited the museum and the card home. And what he wants to do now is write a history of Cardston and some of the surrounding areas, and is looking for support from the mayor and council to say that we would support him in this endeavor. He's quite an interesting person to talk to.
What kind of support is he talking about?
Just,
Financial or just?
No, just a letter.
I'm happy to do
Yeah.
that.
A letter of,
He's applied for a grant, and as part of that grant for the research, he needs to show support from
Okay.
town council.
well, I recommend that we have administration write a letter of support for this project. Could be an interesting project.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, this is Don Godfrey, isn't it?
yes,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Councillor Cronin, Councillor Smith.
Sure, thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
he was quite interesting to talk to, and he was really interested in the museum and the card home and all the artifacts that we've collected over the
I think that would
years.
be very good.
And
Thank you.
I think it would be worthwhile for the town to support him in this endeavor. So we have a recommendation.
Yeah, I just ask a question on that. Because since you had the conversation with him, I just wondering if he indicated like the nature of the history. Like we have 3 Cardston history books.
Books, yeah, big
And I just was wondering what the nature of the, the history, how, if he, expressed how he wanted to write it, how it might be different than the history books. I know the history books aren't really in prose, they're more documentary, but did you get any information on?
Not really.
Okay.
Jeff can speak to that. The email, he sent an email to us with outlining what his project would be, so.
If I could, Mr. Chairman. Many of you around the table may not be aware, Don Godfrey is the son of Floyd Godfrey. Floyd's a former businessman here, Floyd's Furniture. Floyd is a former mayor. And so that just gives a little bit of background. He was also, for what it's worth, a bishop in the church for a while as well.
Floyd does.
Floyd is.
My water, by the way.
Oh, was it? Sorry.
Jeff,
If you don't
do you
catch it.
have the email?
I do, if I might,
That's
Mr.
right,
Chairman.
it's open.
So as part of this, it's a grant application, and basically what he's saying is Cardston is a small town with significant influence across Canada. While it is viewed as a Mormon community and the center of the Mormon presence in Canada, the pioneers brought more than religion into Canada over the last 125 years since the town's founding. Cardstonites have been known for involvement in the broadest aspects of industry, education, and government. This is a history that needs to be told. And in some of the preambles, well, he talked about telling that story about the Charles Oricard group coming through British Columbia and some of the political and religious events leading up to that whole piece as well. And then kind of the influence of Cardston on the area since then.
And I think he's also looking into all the people that have gone from Cardston and become famous.
Prominent contributed.
Prominent people.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
So we have a recommendation to send a letter of support.
Make that motion.
I made them.
Oh, you did, I'm sorry. Thank you.
We need to approve it.
Yeah.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. We have our major report on major projects.
I have a couple of questions, Mr. Chairman. On item number 2, which is the campground expansion and planting of trees, it says it's 95% complete. I presume that's as of the end of August. It was supposedly finished on May the 31st. Why is it taking so long to finish that up, get it done?
There's just a little bit of cosmetic work that will be done in the fall once the RVs are out.
And we have the same problem with the sanitary trunk line. It was completed on July the 13th, and there's still some cleanup to do. Is that done now?
There is still some cleanup to do on First Street East between 2nd and 3rd. They've done a lot of the road work on First Street and 4th Avenue, and there's still the swale that needs to be poured in front of the pool entrance, and we're just waiting on the contractor to finish that project there.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I think just to point out the finish dates on here were when we did our planning at the beginning of the year was the projected finish date at the start of the year. So that may be swinging one way or another a little bit.
Scott?
Just to state the obvious, it could have been finished beautifully on the 25th of July, but on the 26th of July, that was a disaster. I didn't go down there, but it was, from what everyone said to me, an absolute disaster. So just for the record.
And I clean it up wonderfully well. I just would like to know if we could have administration talk to 2nd Street is curb, gutter and pavement. I know that the question was as to how we were going to have those curb paid. I spoke with Jeff regarding the matter, but I think all of us should know how this came to be, because there were questions regarding how the financing was going to happen regarding the curb, not the gutter or the pavement, the curb and gutter.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question regarding the Atkins development.
Can you have
If that doesn't sell, what happens? When you put all this infrastructure in?
Well, let me hit on both here quick. We are not commencing with any infrastructure development until everything's ready to go from the private developer's point of view. So that's why none of those projects are done. We had them budgeted as carryovers from even the year previous, but we're holding on those until the private development necessitates it. So we're not doing anything there as far as that goes. Okay. To your question, Councillor Cronin, her question was about I think Council's all aware, the responsibility of the curb on 2nd Street East was the responsibility of the developer. We went in and put that in because we had a crew in that could do it and it wouldn't hold up the paving this year. So we've negotiated with the developer. We actually had some costs that we owed on some of the electrical installation previously up in that development. So we're trading off on some of those costs and we're covering the difference. is what we're doing there. So we've negotiated with the developer to do a little bit of back and forth on some costs there to
And
take care of that.
then there was the sidewalks that needed to be
yeah.
done, and maybe if you want to clarify it for all of us.
The developer's responsible for the sidewalk installation, and the remaining, there is a small portion left on the curb.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Creed?
I might as well ask one while I'm at it. And I've talked to Jeff about this before, but on the replacement of the sewer services on First Street, he says to start right away. And people ask me about that one from time to time, so any prognosis on when right away?
It's pretty much ready to go. We waited at the request of some of the residents on that street to have an independent engineer review the work on the main, to see if the main should get changed out at the same time we were doing the service lines. We were just told at the end of last week that the engineer feels the main is reliable and adequate and does not need replacing. So we're ready to start digging on the services right away, but we were waiting for that, and they're going to send us something in writing, which we don't have just yet, but our phone conversation was that the main didn't need any work.
Do we foresee that to be finished before the winter sets in?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on major projects?
I guess we should say, Councillor Cronin, that depends when the winter sets in.
Jeff?
Doesn't happen next week.
How
If it's
clever.
around the end of October, yeah, I'm still very comfortable with that.
Very good.
Since the swimming pool is a major project, it may or may not fall in. I would hope, would be getting an update report from that group, maybe monthly, something along that order.
They were tasked with September, so they will be on this September 11th agenda.
Jen, next week?
Because the 25th is canceled, so we would expect to have them on there.
Okay.
Any further? Okay, we have some correspondence from Bill Kinley. He has a petition there, a petition.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just, I want to make sure it's very clear. Mr. Kimley brought in, and I have these on my desk, these number of ballots, I guess is what we could call them, that are each individually signed. He put together the summary, so I only enclosed the summary and just an example of the ballot, but there are a corresponding number of ballots to this summary page.
Okay. And we also have a letter from Leslie Levitt.
I have a question. There's been a lot of talk about these two new power lines going from somewhere in central Alberta down to the Montana border. And you hear all kinds of comments. Some say we need it and some say we don't. I don't know what information we have, whether it is required or is it just something the province wants to do.
Mr. Chairman, I firmly believe that because those are provincial issues, any concerned individuals should address their concerns to their MLA. That would be my recommendation. In the case of 9B, this individual wants to put on our shoulders the obligation to educate our town, and I still think that there again, those responsibilities lie with the MLA.
Marion?
Alta Link has had a couple of open houses in the
Yeah, they
area,
did.
actually in town and more in the area. So I would agree that if you want to be informed, that's the body that you go to. I think the line that Councillor Dow is talking about and the line that is proposed to go south of Cardston or across the Blood Reserve are two separate issues. And so I think it's important that if council doesn't feel that you're fully informed, I have some information that Alta Link has given us that have been in your packages, and I've still got some here if you'd like to just refresh on that.
So we're very informative
I'm just
meeting.
wondering, I don't know if this individual is aware of the the landowners in the area who have been, we had meetings. Would it be worth just responding to her and just saying, that she could contact those like Jeff Bechtel and others that have been, trying to provide people with information on this? So I like I say, don't know
I
if she's
can't
aware or
tell you
not.
how informed she is, I don't know. So-
Yeah, no, I just wondered if it'd be worth replying that there are groups in the area who are trying to educate people, so that she knows that it is happening. I mean, it's not our responsibility necessarily, but there are groups that are.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I was in conversation recently with John Grove. You might be where he's pretty much the gentleman who's a public relations individual for Altalink, and we were speaking on issues related to the new federal boundary electoral boundary realignment, because he is from that area up around Okotoks. He said to me that Altalink will be coming back to the table with some changed, proposed alternate routes. And that's just for the sake, I don't know if that's to appease the Levitt group, I don't know if it's to appease the folks out in Twin Butte, but there are possibly some new route proposals pending, and that's just for information and council. None of which really affects us. But I can add that if the line does go across the reserve, because it will come down below St. Mary's Reservoir, or if it goes below the town in the county, either way, there should be a significant impact economically on the town of Cardston. Cardston is sort of in the middle, from point A to point B to some extent, and should benefit significantly. When a previous line went from Lethbridge to Pincher Creek, Fort McLeod was pretty much in the middle, geographically speaking, located in the middle. And Fort McLeod benefited to a great extent in that project during the construction phase of it.
Any further discussion? Okay, we also have a letter from Kelvin Lang.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, these two letters were on the agenda for the previous council meeting that was adjourned early, so they're just there as a follow-up, so they didn't get missed.
Right.
Okay?
And we also have a letter from Sewa.
We've done a review of this. Basically, it's a request for expression of interest for that group and the facility to, location for the facility to accommodate their project, their plant. We've looked at it. Strategically, it doesn't appear that we would be a good fit. We've talked with the engineers on the project. Our location and the trucking costs and all of those doesn't seem to be what they're looking for. So with that being said, if council wants us to expend some further time and actually put an expression of interest in, we'll be glad to do that. But it seems like it might be a bit futile with our initial investigation.
Councilor Creed?
I was just going to say, the Chief Mountain Solid Waste Authority has also received this information, and I think it's just obligatory for SAWA to give everyone a chance to have some input if they wish. And I believe Marion's right. Our corner is probably not central to this, and so that it's sent out so that we can, if we want to, we can say we're interested. I haven't had my meeting with Chief Mountain Solid Waste Authority. I don't know if there's any other opinion over there, but if there is, I'll report back.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Given some thought to this, Mr. Chairman, I think it's safe to say that everyone here on council would love to see
Yeah.
energy derived from waste. I don't think there's any question that energy being derived from any reasonable source makes good common sense. Do we put ourselves in a position to incur any liability in an energy from waste project? Are they going to come back to us and say, you know, you're a member of this waste collecting region, so to speak, and you need to budget for, you know, $30,000 or whatever, $130,000? I would hope that they've put together a business plan and so forth, because for me, the fly in the ointment is Lethbridge. Lethbridge generates far more waste than all the surrounding communities combined, in my opinion, and yet for their own reasons, I think primarily because they're trying to sustain a landfill or whatever that they've got, Lethbridge chooses not to participate. Having said that, I almost, without having a very good business model and a business plan to look at, or even an actual waste to energy facility to look at, which maybe they've done. I don't know. I don't know whether you're aware of something like that, Councillor Creed.
I'm aware of some.
I'm a little bit concerned. So my question really gets back to this. Do we put ourselves in a position of having to be found liable or to have to support this project?
The thing that I think is that the town of this community is a long ways from everything. We're sort of in an orphan part of the province. And how do we transport our waste where it can be used for a facility like this, and who pays for it?
Now, I don't know if you remember, we did have a member come and do a presentation for council, and they have done business plans. They have looked at facilities in British Columbia, in Europe, many facilities in Europe, and they do have a pretty good model of what they want to do. Whether we want to participate or not, it's up to us. We have through the Chief Mountain Solid Waste Authority in the past, there was a little division in the authority this year, and some did and some didn't. I think that needs to be revisited. My feeling is that if everybody in the Chief Mountain Solid Waste Authority isn't agreed on it, we shouldn't piecemeal it. We either should be all or nothing, but I'll have that discussion with the Chief Mountain Solid Waste Authority. I feel it's worthwhile to have our foot in the door. It's down the road still, probably about 3 or 4 years anyway, but it's worth exploring. I feel like it's worth exploring and to follow through on. So that's my opinion on that.
Anything else?
Seems to me that Vulcan is trying to have something like this, a plant built over there.
This is part of that project.
They've been the one that's really pushing
Yes,
this
because Vulcan is
initiative,
totally in that project.
Vulcan actually initiated the...
Okay, so that's the same project.
They actually have
all
a
right.
plant there that does rubber tire chipping down, that kind of
Yes, I know
recycling there,
that.
so.
Yeah, good.
Mr. Chairman, there's a lot of supplemental documents here that came with this request. If any of council is interested in looking at what their research project has shown to date and that, so we didn't put it in the package because it's quite substantial. So if you'd like to look at it, we have it here. We can get you a copy.
Okay, we have a letter from Environment and Sustainable Resource Development telling us that they will be at the AUMA and wanting to know if you would like to schedule a meeting with them. Do we have any environmental issues that we would like to discuss?
No, and that's a good thing.
What is Alberta Culture Day? Do we do something?
We have a letter from Alberta Culture.
This doesn't fit with anything we're doing.
Mine is about the Alberta Culture Days, which take place September 28th to the 30th. And
Is that something we do in town?
just wanting to know if we are going to be involved in that.
Isn't
We-
it in town in the past been some exhibit of local painter or something? There was something done from the seniors or from,
All over.
Remington,
Remington.
and probably the Friends have
right?
done some display down at the.
So that is at that times they normally do it, right? Yes. And it's a good thing because there's so many artists in this town. It's amazing. And I think it will be good to recognize them. We don't have no local museum or art center to display their stuff.
Well, they tried a couple of times to set up a store with art in it, but it didn't last too long.
No, that's too bad.
I know the Historical Society, they did do one down at the Card Home,
Didn't
where
work.
they invited a lot of the local artists and had a display for, I think it was on Saturday.
Too bad. Okay.
Oh, is this an annual
Annual, yeah.
Yes.
program that they do? I hadn't been particularly aware of it, but knowing that this is an annual event, perhaps we should consider something,
Promoting.
promoting it when it comes around again. I think we're a little too close to actually being able to organize something, but I think if we know it's an annual event, it would be something that we could plan for and do something in the future.
But the Remington has done that every other year, right? Or every year?
I'm not sure how many years they've done it, but they have done it in the past, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not exactly sure how we do that. I mean, I would think that, yes, we would want to promote art and culture in our area, heritage and so forth. We want to be just a little careful, though, getting involved in something like this, because it could end up being something that we have to drive, that we have to organize, that we have to promote, and that we have to staff. And I think we would need to be very careful. So if any member of council has some ideas on how we can encourage without ending up being the ones who have to promote and organize and staff a function.
Fund.
And fund, thank you. The other issue is, I think, on the 8th of August this year, we held our annual, what I call outstanding Alberta cultural event with heritage and cultural diversity being the powwow. And I guess I just kind of wish that this organization would sort of broaden their time situation, where they're saying we're going to do this between the 28th and 30th of September. I mean, we're just barely getting back from AUMA convention. And so if the Remington Center or whoever was willing to do something, yeah, I think we would want to encourage them and give them accolades and so forth. But to organize it and promote it and staff it and pay for it, that's not someplace that I think we want to go. That's just my opinion.
Anything else? Okay, we have a letter from LAPP telling us that the economy isn't doing very good, so they're going to increase our rates.
I have a concern with unfunded pension liabilities. And it seems to be consistent in government affairs where their pensions are light and end up with an unfunded liability. So I come back to say, who pays, who brings it up to date, who takes the haircut?
Who gets fleeced?
Right now, it's
It's the-
part of
the
the
sheep's hair.
package, the salary package, salary and benefits, and so it has to go up. And so it's passed on to the taxpayer.
Well, there's only one taxpayer, so.
Exactly right.
Just for council's information, we estimate that in 2013, it will increase by about $8,600, and in 2014, about $16,000.
Which is huge.
That's the employer portion. That's not including what additional will be paid by the employees
Are
themselves.
we
Right.
50/50?
It's a 40,
40/60.
they're different percentages. It's broke down there, Counselor, for you. 8.9, for 2012, members paid 8.91 and the employer paid 9.91, up to the YMPE. And then 12.74 and 13.74 respectively. So the employer pays slightly more.
But not
Then
much.
the
I think
employee.
that's fair.
And the salary's
Okay.
quite up.
We have two letters from municipal affairs.
I'd like to make comment on Mr. Weedick's letter. August 14th, he sends this letter out saying he would like to strengthen the relationships, and within days, they stick a knife in Fort McLeod's back, figuratively, and then you tell Carmen, we're going to take away your main source of employment. Is it because we didn't vote along party lines, or are they actually doing this because it's better for the taxpayers out there? I appreciate we may not need a police college, but for 8 years, they've been telling this community to get ready, we're coming, prepare for us. And then the mayor of Fort McLeod gets a news release. He doesn't even get a call from the government. He gets a news release. I find this to be very disturbing that he'd even send this out to us. It's quite
My guess is,
inappropriate.
my guess is, Counselor, that that's
Probably
not,
didn't know about it.
that's not going to be a very pleasant time at the AOMA convention in 3 weeks.
I hope so.
Personally, I think that Fort McLeod has been sold down the river.
Oh,
And because they've gone ahead and spent some money in the last few months. That land sat there with the sign on it for 6 or 7 years. And future home of the police. And surely we knew 6 or 7 years ago, there was a facility in Regina, a facility in Calgary, a facility in Edmonton. And I think the people of Fort McLeod have been sold down the river by our government.
Councillor Creed?
I know, ever since this has come out, I've been pondering in my mind, is there some way that we could do something to at least offer Fort McLeod some support or something, say we support your community or something like that? Maybe somebody might have an idea, but I feel like, yes, Fort McLeod and all of the communities, you mentioned Carmen Gate as well, we need to somehow have a little solidarity. Maybe that'll be an AUMA item that we'll have to work on, but.
Yeah, hopefully somebody will bring forth a resolution and
Well, I know that, I know Sean Patience here, and I'm sure this is probably not the end of it there. I'm sure there's plenty more to be said about it there, so, and be done about it maybe, so. So we might hear from them.
Councillor Dowell's favorite comment is Carson's an orphan down here. I think since the last election, you could pretty much put Southern Alberta, south to Calgary, going to be orphans. I'm not sure what's going to happen down the road, but the two things that have happened this summer lead me to believe that we may be in for a rough ride.
Mayor Scott?
And there may be another lesson to be learned here too, is the more we can encourage, the more we can foster and encourage and welcome private industry, private development, private initiative, the better we are. Having said that, we've also seen private enterprises, go south, go down, in flames. So it's unfortunate in some cases where communities sort of count on some government promises only to have the government renege.
Particularly after you spent some money to start it.
Has it been divulged? Has it been made known how much money Fort McLeod?
They're talking 4 million.
4 million, yeah.
my heavens.
big bucks, and they put in the infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. And I wonder myself if some of the reason is that this part of the province voted Wild Rose, and this is against, because we voted Wild Rose.
Backlash.
At least poor planning, yeah, for sure.
Mary?
It would may be appropriate for council to send a letter to Fort McLeod and CC the minister saying, that what your support is for Fort McLeod, that you're disappointed with the decision and that we can help them in whatever way they need in the future.
I do one more thing. I would phone 310-0000 and ask for the Premier's office and leave a message on the Premier's office. You can get through, get the secretary that will answer.
Well,
Individual
I
thing,
think
maybe.
the suggestion that Marion's made, the letter,
I think
Yeah,
it's
I think the letter is
best.
fine.
We would want to CC our MLA, we would want to CC the government department that scuttled the McLeod peace officer
I
called.
actually talked to MLA Costco this morning, and I know his feelings on it already.
And obviously, maybe we would want to send something to Mr. Whittick, wherein we reference his letter of August the 14th and saying, this doesn't really look good when you've just sent us this letter talking about challenges and opportunities facing municipalities.
So he is looking forward to working with us.
Shutting things down, apparently.
Do we need a recommendation from council for a letter? I'll make that recommendation that we send a letter to Fort McLeod just expressing our support to Fort McLeod in their fight or whatever, if they're.
A copy to the minister.
Copies to the appropriate government
Yeah, I
people,
think they need to know we're disappointed.
including the
in
Premier.
Yeah. All in favor? Any opposed? Now we have another letter from them. Did we get our information booklet? Okay.
Yeah, I apologize, I didn't include it in the package because it's a bit of an awkward thing to include in the package, but yes, we have it.
So it'd be interesting to see when we apply for some grants as to whether or not we get any down south.
I just was curious to know, are there new grants or are they nothing new?
No, it's just the same, and most of them aren't competitive grants, they're formula-based.
Okay, so but are they, did they shrink in dollar amounts or are they similar to last year?
Not any more than we were already given notice.
Okay.
Earlier.
So that's about the same as last year then?
Yeah, we don't know what's happening in 2013, this is,
Okay.
we'll see when the budget comes out in 2013.
We have a letter of thanks from the Friends of the Society Remington Carriage Museum for our support for their mini chuck. It looked a little dusty down there this year.
I was out of town, so I wasn't
It
around.
was a very good event.
Yeah.
Yeah, really well.
And we have a letter from Alberta Recycling.
About the grant.
Yeah.
That grant presentation took place this week up at the tire recycling and also at the CDAH recycling. One of the points that was made at Cardston District Association for the Handicapped at their recycling facility, one of the problems that they face is, along with cardboard and along with rejected clothing, so to speak, for third world countries and plastics. There's virtually no market for plastics right now. The price just isn't there. So whoever has got the big warehouse full of plastics, it's full of plastics and he doesn't want any more. So, they're not going to be able to send him anymore. But one of the points that was made by the folks up at the handicapped recycling is they do some recycling of electronics. But unfortunately, microwaves, toaster ovens, and things like that, and toasters don't qualify as electronics, and yet they continue to get them in. And all they can really do is just kind of throw them in the garbage someplace, but anyway. But he did say that they might be able, the gentleman what was his name, from Alberta Recycling?
Sid.
Let's be,
This last.
here we go, Sid Hinton, this gentleman here. He said that they might actually expand the handling of those, so they don't end up in landfills as such. There might be some recycling available there.
Our last letter is from Sheila Clare concerning Bill 36.
It's another good letter for the MLA,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
She's getting a lot of information from the leader of the Social Credit Party. That's who Len Skoromsky is.
Yeah. And also some from the landowners association. But anyway, something to watch.
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to move we go on camera.
Okay, all in favor?